Please give Catherine a super warm welcome. She's definitely got lots of experience and tips. Thank you.
I wasn't nervous before, but that intro has now made me a little bit nervous. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for having me here this evening. It's lovely to meet new people, and I'm looking forward to having a chat after today's talk. So I wanted to start with a question. When I say the word public speaking, or the phrase public speaking, what kind of things come to mind? What kind of feelings or emotions does that phrase generate for you? Maybe, and I'm realizing probably quite a few of you are like, I love it. This is my bread and butter. Get me up on that stage. Maybe you feel slightly ambivalent about it. Maybe it's a necessary evil, something we just have to do at work. Maybe that phrase is one that you hear and the kind of terror starts to brew, and maybe the palms start to get a little bit sweaty and you think, this is not for me, not my bag. Now, there's no right or wrong in any of those responses. Absolutely not. But it does influence how likely we are to put our ideas out into the world. And certainly in my experience with the Agile Yorkshire community, I work with a lot of tech companies. You are in the business of ideas. You're in the business of creating new ideas, getting people on board with your ideas, inspiring people with your ideas. And you can have the best idea in the room, but if you do not have the ability to communicate that idea, to get people on board with your idea, you're never going to get the traction that that idea deserves. So my name's Catherine Bonner. I work with passionate, purpose-led leaders to help them improve how they take their message and share it with the world. And it's something that I am incredibly passionate about, particularly working with engineers, project managers, technical people, because I think so often it's a skill that maybe they find intimidating, maybe it's a skill that they've not had time to actually perfect or develop. I've been very busy developing lots of other skills. And it's something that I think, even if you are a seasoned speaker, there's always more nuance, always more ways that we can improve the way we are communicating with those around us. And just to illustrate my point, I want to share a very quick story. It's an oldie but a goodie. You may have heard of it before. So here on screen, we have the Kennedy and Nixon debate of 1966 before the presidential election. Spoiler alert, Kennedy won this one, so there you go. In latter years, Nixon cited this moment, this first ever televised debate, as the moment that he lost the electoral campaign. And if you look at the body language of the two gentlemen on the screen, you've got Kennedy looking very relaxed, very chilled, but at the same time authoritative. You feel like you're in a safe pair of hands. And then you have Nixon on this side, who is literally rigid with what looks like fear. There is a very blank expression on his face. He's self-soothing his leg as well. He had an old war injury that was causing him some bother that day. And looking back on this situation, Nixon said, he looks like the leader. He came across like a leader. He communicated like a leader. I didn't. Now, interestingly, this is the first ever televised debate. Those who listened to the debate on the radio thought that Nixon won, but those who watched it thought that Kennedy won. Now, if the ability to speak in public, the ability to communicate, has the power to change the future of a nation, imagine what it does for our careers, for our ideas, for our impact in the world. Okay, so why speak? Again, I feel like maybe I'm speaking to an audience who lots of you do speak, which is great. But for many engineers or technicians, that idea of putting yourself out into the world can be really intimidating. But there are so many benefits. And one of the main ones, I think, is when you actually are doing public speaking, it means you have to really know your subject. You have to get kind of to the depth and the intimate nature of that subject, which is really quite exciting. It also gives us the opportunity to share our perspective, to maybe change the narrative around Agile, exactly as Richard just did. It maybe questions the way that we have seen the world before. And it can be a hugely advantageous thing for our career. So often, we put a lot of energy into developing our coding skills, our technical skills, which is obviously absolutely vital, but at some point we hit a ceiling. At some point, actually, it's the way we communicate, the way we include and collaborate with our teams that makes a huge difference to our outcomes. So even if you are thinking, why do I need to publicly speak? maybe there's a conference that you've been thinking, I could give that a go. Or maybe there's just a stand-up. For me, public speaking isn't just doing this. It's every time we're in a meeting. It's every time we're in a scrum. It's every time we're trying to convince and persuade people to think a particular way. And I don't know, I'd love a show of hands here. Has anyone had the situation where maybe someone in your sphere, maybe that's at work or someone you know in your industry, who has been given an opportunity that you think, I'd have been better at that than them. I could have done that. But they got the opportunity because they were the ones who were standing up on stage, or they were the ones who were building their reputation externally. Has anyone ever had that before? I mean, I've certainly had, I'm seeing lots of nods. I've certainly had that in my career before. And I think, we don't want to miss out on those opportunities just because we haven't mastered the ability to stand on stage. So I think a really important thing to acknowledge at this point, I work with so many people who are like, it's not for me. I can't do that, I don't like that speaking thing. And it's really important to remember, I don't think anyone came out of the womb with the ability to publicly speak. So I have 2 small children, they definitely are not able to do this yet. It's a skill that can be developed, like every other skill that we have learned in our lives. But we do have to be brave enough to put the time and the effort into developing it. So I'm going to just ask you to think about, if you have not put yourself forward for that latest conference, if you have maybe not put your hand up in a meeting, what is it that's holding you back? What is it that is stopping you doing that? Now, I'm going to throw this out to you. I would like you to turn to the person next to you. Everyone's moved around, so we're going to have to find a friend here. I would like you to you can come as a 3 over here and a pair over here. Have you ever held yourself back from putting your name forward for a conference, for actually speaking in public, for raising your hand? And if you have, what is it that's holding you back? Share with the person next to you. Off you go. It's a big ask. I feel like you're stranded alone. Clever, I like it.
Well,
I know this is how I do it, let's just fill it up.
But at this point, I can basically just say, I don't have to do it. I have more junior providers that's much more, so I get away with it now.
Okay, I'm just going to pull everyone back together. I feel like I just opened like this most beautiful can of worms, and we could have just done this for the next half an hour. That's all I needed to do. I'd love to hear some of the thoughts from the floor. I did hear over here, talking too fast. Yep. Thanks, adrenaline, for making that happen. Any thoughts over here? What kind of things came out?
I think for me, fear of failure is the obvious one.
Yeah, I mean, this is like evolutionary stuff. It's, putting yourself on stage. You're putting your head above the parapet, and we are, prehistorically tribal creatures. We want to be in the pack, and we don't want to fail, and particularly in public. It's really understandable. Anyone else? What other kind of things came up? Yes?
I quite often think of someone who would do a better job than me. I often suggest them instead, which is probably...
I mean, that's. I mean, I love that you're serving the community. Fantastic. That's absolutely fascinating, and actually, that's really interesting because we often think that maybe people don't want to hear from us, or maybe they could hear from someone better. But we are all on this planet with our unique experiences, our unique backgrounds, and I would argue that we desperately need to hear from a plethora of voices. I don't want to hear from the same person again and again, and I think often in communities that's what happens. The person who's willing to be like, yep, I'll showboat, I'm ready. That's great, but we want to hear from those different voices and different experiences because we all have something so unique to share in the room, I personally believe. So I'm going to challenge you to think a little bit. If you were to do more public speaking, if you were to put your name into the next conference and not someone else's, why? Why would this make a difference to you and your life? I was working with someone recently, and they had been brought up in a culture where showing off and putting themselves forward was really frowned upon. I mean, I certainly grew up like that. No one likes to show off. That's kind of the narrative that I grew up with. And this individual had built an incredible team. The tech team were really doing amazing things. They were delivering on their KPIs. They were bonded as a team. They were really working well together. But this team lead realised that her team were missing out on opportunities. For some reason, they were overlooked for some projects. For some reason, they just didn't seem to get the recognition that she felt they deserved. And when she unpicked it a little bit, she realised it was because no one knew who she was. they just didn't think of her as being a fantastic leader, even though she was. And she realised actually it's because she hadn't put herself forward for things, she hadn't actually built her personal brand. And when it came to getting clear on her why, she was like, well, I don't want to do it for me because it feels very awkward, but I'll do it for my team. If my team are missing out because people don't know who I am, that is a problem, and I can do something about that. So I'd get really clear on what is your why for sharing your idea. Maybe you can see a huge opportunity, just thinking about the talk we've just heard, a huge opportunity to apply those agile or lean technologies to different environments. Maybe you are sick of seeing the same repetitive issues at work, and actually you have a solution for how we could make that better. We need to hear from your voices. So get really clear on your why. Now, I could talk about this forever, okay, but I wanted tonight to share kind of 6 key tools I'd really recommend you think about for developing your voice. Even if you are already a proficient speaker, if you're already doing loads of presentations, there's always more nuance, there's always more we can learn. So hopefully everyone will get something out of this. Very aware there's lots of very good speakers in the room. So with this idea of a toolkit, it's this constant evolution and nuance that we can continue to build. The first thing I wanted to share is you need to find your idea. What is it that you are going to share that is going to make a difference? And so often when I work with people, they say, oh, I've got nothing to say. I've got nothing, there's nothing new. I've got nothing that is going to add to the conversation. And I would really argue against that. I don't think that's the case at all. As I said, we want to hear from a variety of voices. And in my experience, there is very little new stuff in this world. Most stories have been around the block 1 or 2 times before. So if you are waiting for something new before you get signed up for that conference, you're probably going to be waiting for a while. Most of the ideas that we hear are on the shoulders of giants anyway. So it's actually much more about your experience, your passion, what you are really motivated by that's going to make us as an audience be motivated as well. So get a big piece of paper and a Sharpie pen, because life is just better when you've got a Sharpie pen. Write down all the things that you are interested in at the moment, all the things that are annoying you or frustrating you or exciting you. Have a whole gamut of ideas in front of you, of things you could potentially talk about. We also want to add in our uniqueness there. What makes you different to everybody else? Because you are absolutely unique. So what is it about you and your experience that adds to this? We then want to think about the audience, and this is the really important part. Who are you going to be speaking to? What matters to them? What do they care about? Ultimately, public speaking is not about the speaker, it's about the audience. It's about how we can move and engage that group of people in front of us on that day. So when you think about your idea, it's this perfect kind of cross-section of things that you are interested in and passionate about and intrigued by, but also what's going to add value to that audience. What do they care about? What matters to them? I had a really interesting situation recently where one of my people on a training course came to the training course with the idea that he wanted to present about Bop It. Does everyone know what I mean when I say Bop It? Yeah, I was a bit like, this is very retro. It's one of those handheld games where you like push a bit and pull a bit and twist a bit. And he was, good Lord, this guy loved Bop It. He was like, it's mine and my wife's passion. It's really fun. And he wanted to come to talk to us about Bop It. And I was like, okay, that's great. Love it. Why should I care? And he was like, what do you mean, why should I care? Bop It's really fun. I was like, I'm going to challenge you on that. Bop It is fun for you. You need to find some fun for me. And what he did, and it was really clever, by the end of the day's training, he actually did an entire presentation on the importance of fun and finding fun in our lives, whether it is embroidery, cooking, baking, Bop It, whatever it is. And he challenged the whole room to think about how much fun have you actually had recently, purely for the sake of fun. I have 2 small children. It's been a while. So it actually was incredibly moving. So I would really challenge you to think about what's interesting to me, what value can I add to the audience? The next thing to think about is your self-awareness. So how good are you at doing this public speaking thing? And that's it. It's all about getting to know your skills, your strengths, where you need to improve. You can't improve what you don't notice or what you're not aware of. Get some feedback, okay? Now, feedback could be the form of filming yourself. Super awkward, but useful. You can get good intelligence as to what your voice is doing and what your body language is doing. But also, you work with people on a daily basis. Get some feedback from them. Ask specific questions like, how did I engage the room in that in that presentation? How did I answer that question to that client? Was I clear? How did I communicate? You absolutely need to build your self-awareness here, because then you can do something about it. When we have that self-awareness, we can develop our connection to the audience. I can think, right, okay, they didn't find that one very funny. How can I develop that so the next joke lands better? Or how can I adapt my style depending on the room and the mood of the room? It also can help you manage your nerves. When you have good self-awareness, when you know that you actually have the ability to engage a room, you have the ability to inspire people or to use those tools and techniques, you feel calmer, because you know you've kind of got those skills in your back pocket. We also need to think about getting that specific feedback. So if you're sitting here thinking, I think I'm all right, I'm not really sure, that's a really good sign to go and ask somebody. And I'd say, even if we do this on a daily basis, I still work with a communication and vocal coach, even though I do this for a living, because I can always get better. There is always room for improvement. So number 1, find your idea. Number 2, build your self-awareness, work out where you need to maybe improve your skills. Number 3, transform your talk with purpose. Now, this is the number 1 thing I see most speakers, and I would say particularly in the technical world, not do. They don't have a really good purpose for their talk. They don't have a really good why. They'll say things like, oh, I want to talk about innovation. Okay, great. I want to talk about Bop It. Lovely. Why should I care? And that why is that big picture, inspirational, motivational anchor that roots down your talk. So rather than I want to talk about innovation in tech, it might be something around the lines of I want to inspire developers to make more customer-centric code. You know, that's a good why, something that people can really get behind. So when we have that why, it inspires action. It actually gives you much more clarity on what you can cut out of your presentation. If anyone ever struggles with waffling or not knowing what to put in, seeing some nods, having a good why and a clear why makes it really easy to say, well, that bit, I don't need it. It's not actually going to help me move towards that why. It's such a simple technique, but it transforms the way you present. Most people don't actually ever find a really good why. Ultimately, what I want you to ask yourself, and this is like my mantra, what do you want your audience to think, to feel, or to do as a result of your presentation? It needs to create some action. It needs to create some movement. How do you want me to feel about your subject? What do you literally want me to do when I move out of that room today? Okay, so it's a really useful mantra just to hold yourself to account. Have I given people some action today? Or have I just talked at them? It's a really different approach. Number 4, how matters. Okay, it's not just about what we say, it's about how we say it. To totally paraphrase Maya Angelou, she said, we often forget what people say, but we remember how they made us feel. And this is about the how. This is about your body language, your voice. I was working with he is a fantastic MD, not a fan of public speaking. And when I got on board, I watched his very first all hands event that he was doing. And he delivered this all hands like this. So well done, everyone. I think you did a great job. Keep going. It's like you hit all your sales targets. It's really great. Thanks. And I was like, are you happy? Because you looked like you wanted to murder somebody, and I'm really not sure how that went down. What was really interesting, by the end of the week, there was this really bizarre rumour going around the organisation that people were going to be made redundant. And when we unpicked it, it was because they said, well, clearly there was something else going on, because he didn't look happy about the fact we'd hit all the sales. So clearly there was something else happening. And then this rumour had spiraled. People are bizarre, I don't know. But it's interesting to think about the power of your delivery and the impact it can have. So it's not just what you say, it's about engaging the audience, bringing your idea to life, trying to engage with questions, or with, I got you to speak to each other. That was a clever trick to make you more engaged in the subject, and it worked. But really thinking about your body language, your vocal tone, and your presence. A huge part of speaking in public, and this is still really relevant when we're doing it online, but even more important when we're in person, is what presence and energy are you bringing to the room? Are you actually being generous with your energy? If you're kind of going into yourself and you're being a bit like, oh, I don't really like doing this, and this makes me feel very uncomfortable, but my energy is only getting to about here. You're not listening, you've switched off, because I'm just here and not here. So think about your presence, think about your energy. Number 5, connection is key. It is about you as an audience, not necessarily about me as a speaker. So get to know your audience. Who are they? What matters to them? I've worked with technical people for like the last 10 years. I've worked for a tech startup before setting up my own business. I love working with engineers and understanding the challenges that they have. Get to know your audience in the same way. Who is it you're speaking to? What matters to them? How do they like to communicate? Do they like lots of detail? Do they like big picture? What is going on for that audience? And remember to always include stories. Stories stick. Think about us, again, evolutionary-wise, of us sitting around the campfire, telling stories and passing on information. That is how humans resonate with narratives. So anytime you can think of a story, popping a story into your presentation helps bring it to life. And really work on engaging the room. How comfortable do you feel making eye contact? Do you feel comfortable throwing out questions? I loved it when you asked the questions to the audience. Anyone got any questions? That terrifies me, because I'm like, oh, they might ask too many questions or they might give something away. I thought you did a fantastic job. And then the final part of this toolkit that I want to talk to you about today is this idea of managing your adrenaline, which is interesting because that came up, didn't it? Nerves are really normal. And so often I'll hear people say, I'm too nervous, I couldn't do it. I'm too nervous, I can't put myself out there. And I get it, it's real. It's our adrenaline and cortisol trying to protect us. I also don't want you to use it as an excuse. If we all use that excuse of I'm too nervous, we're never going to hear those ideas from people with more depth of thinking or more original thinking. We're going to keep hearing from the same voices. So it's really important to acknowledge it's very normal, that it happens to everybody. It is no comment on your ability. So often I work with people who say, oh, I'm really nervous, therefore I must be rubbish. No, not at all. Your nerves are an adrenaline issue, not an ability issue. So please do not let that hold you back. Create a plan. There is so much that we can do to manage our nerves. And for me, if I'm doing a big talk, those nerves might start 3 months in advance. Every time I think about it, that little prickle of anxiety might just start popping up. So do something about it. I end up having a little notepad with me at all times. Just write down, oh, this is making me a bit nervous, or this is an idea I've had. Just give it somewhere to go. On our workshop that we do with Royd, we talk about having an adrenaline toolkit. So an entire toolkit of things that you can do so that when you are in the room, that adrenaline doesn't take over, those nerves don't take over, you are actually able to manage them. And I use the word manage very intentionally. This is not about controlling them. Control is stiff and tight and it makes us feel actually more nervous, but managing them is a very different approach. So, I'm coming to the end of the talk now, but I want you to really think about, and the key point I really want you to take away, is to challenge yourself to put yourself into new situations that you haven't been in before. Maybe you are a university lecturer and maybe very, very used to being in this environment. Is there another area that you could challenge yourself in? Could you go and talk to a new audience or a different audience? But find your idea that you're really passionate about and is going to connect with the audience. Really think about building your self-awareness. Where are you doing a fantastic job? Where do you need to improve? Really think about that purpose. What's that key why? How are you going to transform your talk into something that's going to really resonate with your entire audience? Think about the how. It's actually about your body language, your voice, your energy, your presence, connection with your audience, and manage that adrenaline. So, before I finish, I'm going to do a really shameless plug here. At Agile Yorkshire, we want to hear from more speakers. We want to hear from you. Please, please do get in touch with Royd if you are interested in speaking, if you've got a subject you'd like to talk about. We also are hosting our next Agile Yorkshire workshop. This is a complimentary workshop. You come to us in Leeds and we have a really fun 2.5 hours kind of unpicking some of the things we've talked about today. The next one's on the 1st of May. I'm looking at Royd just to check. I think that's right. We would absolutely love to have you there. It's a really fun environment and again, great to get to know some more people in the community. And then finally, please connect with me on LinkedIn. It's always great to meet more people. But thank you so much for your time. And I'd love to know if you've got any questions, anything you'd like to ask. So thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.